This is The Law Show on CL 650. Now back to the show.
We're talking insurance with our personal injury lawyers, Joe Murphy and Angela Price-Stevens from Murphy Batista LLP here in Vancouver. And we're talking about insurance on this episode of The Law Show, and there's a lot to talk about as our guests. Lawyers both, they're not in the insurance business. They just deal with the consequences of poorly constructed insurance policies, among other things. Joe Murphy identified life insurance as the type of insurance that most Canadians are most likely to carry, followed pretty closely, I think, by car insurance. And I wanted to stop on car insurance, despite the fact that we dedicated our last month's program almost exclusively to ICBC and those issues relating to dealing with our provincial insurer, Joe. Car insurance, here in BC, we have an option. We have a public-private option if we want. We can go ICBC all the way, or we can take the basic coverage ICBC requires, and then we can add on extra coverage from a third-party independent provider. What do most of us do here in BC? Do we just take the ICBC package because it's easy?
I would think, and I haven't seen the stats, that the majority of people have their total coverage with ICBC.
I think so too. It's just convenient, isn't it?
It's convenient. If I'm an elderly driver with a spotless record, I'm probably going to save a few dollars by buying coverage from a private insurer.
Like
ICBC.
Grey Power, and they specialize in 60-plus drivers,
Yeah.
those sorts of things. So
Yeah.
there may be savings to be realized.
Maybe, yes.
Okay, what about UMP? Let's talk about UMP for a minute, because that's part of ICBC, and it's a really important part. It costs all of what, $25, $26 a year, and it's huge. Joe, tell us about UMP.
Well, Sterling, UMP was created in the mid to late 1980s, and it really happened when the ICBC president one day was in a car accident. And he thought to himself, well, if I'm badly hurt by someone and they only have the minimum coverage, $200,000,
right,
I'm sweet out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
So ICBC then brought in this UMP coverage, and it said that if I buy, and at that time it was $12 a year, if I buy that and someone runs into and injures me and they don't have enough coverage, ICBC will top up the coverage to whatever my liability coverage is.
Okay.
So it's $12 a year, $1 a month. And initially, very, very few people bought it. Very few.
Does the U stand for uninsured or underinsured?
Underinsured, but it would also cover an uninsured driver. So
Okay.
that's how it started out. And ICBC then said, okay, $12 a year, and it ties into whatever your coverage is. And then they decided, and I'm not sure why, that they didn't want to tie it in with your coverage. Rather, everybody would get $2 million of UMP, so that it meant ICBC would top up to $2 million, the insurance pool, if someone was hurt in Canada, in the United States. Then they changed that, and they said, no, we're only going to sell $1 million as the basic UMP,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to offer people for an extra $24 a year a second million, which covers them and their family.
Right, okay.
So that's where we are today. We're up with this excess UMP. With ICBC, you cannot buy more than the extra $1 million to $2 million, but some homeowner policies allow you to buy the same coverage up to $5 million. I think it's the best coverage you can possibly buy. If you're going to buy coverage in your vehicle that covers a stranger who's injured, why wouldn't you buy the coverage that covers you and your family members and your passengers if you're injured, especially for $2 a month?
Exactly. So, Angela, the minimum recommendation from you lawyers would be, if you're just going the ICBC route, and that's what's convenient, that's what you've always done, buy the maximum underinsured motorist protection, or UMP, that you can purchase, which is $2 million, which will cost you less than $50 a year.
Absolutely, yes.
Less than half of $50 a year.
It's actually $24, $25.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. And do most of us now tick that box when we get our car insurance, or are we still trying to save $25?
It used to be a separate policy, a separate form. Now it's part of the ICBC registration. Over time, more and more people have it. I think if people don't have it, it's because they don't understand what it is. They just haven't been advised of it. And there's some insurance agents that will automatically tick the box because they know people need it. And there's other insurance agents who may not do do that and may not really provide a description or explanation of just how valuable this coverage might be.
And so here we are, Angela, back to, again, under a different file and a different type of policy, we're back to that insurance professional providing us with the proper information and asking the right questions, which will lead us to the conclusions that Joe is suggesting we all need to arrive at, which is purchase this extra insurance for peanuts. So if the agent isn't guiding us in that direction, for whatever reason, they are doing us a disservice.
Yes, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, $20-odd a year for the extra. That really doesn't take much advice. And as I say, it's a no-brainer. Everybody should have it. I mean, what does $24 get you otherwise? You know, it's a trip to the Starbucks with your children, and yet if you need that insurance, you know, in the unfortunate event that you need to claim on it, it's devastating not to have it.
Joe, if you're, I'm trying to understand how UMP works out of British Columbia. If we're in Washington State, we've gone down to a Seahawks game and we get into trouble down there and have an accident and so on, and some guy who carries a Washington State maximum coverage, which I understand to be about $200,000 compared to what we're required to up here. Does UMP kick in our favor in a foreign jurisdiction?
It covers an insured person, which would be a BC family with this coverage, for injuries suffered anywhere in Canada or the United States.
Ah, okay.
And the most common scenario is someone vacationing in the States, and it might be a day trip to Seattle, or it might be a trip somewhere else that's hit by an American motorist that doesn't have the coverage. I was involved in a case involving a BC family. They owned and operated a large farm up north. It was an extended family that was going on a big holiday, so the parents, the kids, their partners, some little kids, and they were all hit by a drunk driver in Hawaii, and there was 2 of them killed, and they were all badly injured. And it was the UMP coverage that really provided the payment of their claims because there wasn't enough insurance.
And they had UMP back here in BC.
Yes, common in the States to find a motorist with $20,000 or $40,000 in coverage.
Yeah. So again,
critically important.
So so $25 a year is probably the best money you're going to spend on yourself year in and year out when it comes to basic insurance coverage.
For sure.
You mentioned the homeowner and tenant packages as being obviously terribly important bits of insurance coverage. I wanted to ask you, though, what happens to a person who is a homeowner who has a tenant? The tenant is going to provide his or her insurance covering their belongings and possessions and so on. So the insurance industry, you're looking at 2 policies under the same roof, basically. The homeowner owns the roof. The tenant is renting the premises. So are those insurance coverages in parallel then, Joe? Is that how that works?
The way the tenant's policy works is if the tenant is negligent and causes damage to the home, and it could be an apartment, could be a house.
Okay.
If they leave a pot on the stove and forget about it and a fire happens and the structure's badly damaged, again, a house or apartment, if they turn on a tap and forget about it and there's a flood, the insurance company of the dwelling, and if it's a house, it's my insurance company as the owner. If it's a condo building, it's the Strata Council's insurance is going to pay to fix it. But then they will turn around and sue the tenant
who caused the fire or the flood
for the total cost of the repair. And that's when a tenant needs to have their own insurance that will pay the claim $200,000, $400,000, $1 million. So not only is this coverage invaluable if they go out and injure someone on a ski slope,
right,
but it's invaluable if they cause a fire or they cause a flood and there's this damage. So even though my insurance company as the owner will pay, my insurance company is going to turn around and in my name sue them.
So as a tenant then, Angela, we tend to sort of look, because we're keeping our investment and a cash outlay down generally, so we're looking to sort of lowball the coverage. So then how does one structure the coverage in a tenant's policy, or is there language in every tenant's policy that suggests those sorts of lawsuits, fire and flood, are covered automatically, and then the only thing you adjust is the value of your possessions? How does that work?
Well, you talk about value of possessions. Generally, they're pretty low in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
I mean, the short answer to that is look carefully at the policy, but generally there will be coverage under each of those heads, and there should be.
Okay.
For incidents that happen outside of the home that you're renting, and also to cover those incidents and accidents that happen inside the home.
Right. Again, so and it's no good if you're the tenant and you're living in a condo or a house, and somebody says, "What, have you got insurance?" No, it's not my house. The guy who owns the house has got the insurance. I don't need insurance. It's not my house. You hear that a lot, don't you, Joe?
Yes. People don't understand the need they have for this coverage if they're renting.
Right. Important stuff. We're talking insurance, and the two, I guess, the two of you probably handle a lot of claims on the last two types of insurance we're going to discuss: disability and travel insurance. Our guests are Joe Murphy, QC, and Angela Price-Stevens from Murphy Battista LLP here in Vancouver, and we're back with our final segment of Insurance and the Law here on CIL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CIL 650.